Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how the things that society wants for you is not really in your best interest. So, one of the things I remember is I had a former colleague when I used to work in a retail store. He was about 80 something years old, right? His name is Bob. And one of the most insightful and profound things that he just kind of blurted out of nowhere. And Bob was a rich guy. I always remember like he'd always take like a break every couple of months to go on cruises and then come back and work for $12 an hour at a retail store. And one of the things that he just kind of blurted out that I think was like the most insightful thing I heard at the time was, yeah, they'll work you to death and then get rid of you as soon as you're useless to them. And I don't know why, but my mind was blown when I heard that. And I think because he was the only person who ever just blurted something out so real, right? And when I think about all the other times in my life where I'm tired, I just want to relax, and I just want other people to kind of regenerate with me. We learn and grow together, and I think relaxing and regeneration is an important thing for everybody, which is why we need to sleep. And you ever notice like so many human beings are so focused on just overriding their natural body rhythms, right? They're up till like 3, 4 a.m. working. They're hooked on stimulants every single day just to function. And I think we live in such an unnatural society where one of the things I always say is that we live in a 50% at least failure rate in anything in society, right? Like if I just type in certain things like how many people are depressed, it's probably at least 50%. How many people are living paycheck to paycheck, at least 50%. One of the things I remember Googling was how many people regret buying a home in 2023, and the search results said like 93%, right? 93%. So we live in a society where most of the people within it are failing, and that's one of the reasons is because of a lack of leadership and direction in the society, right? And I remember when I talked to my high school teacher, right? So I went to a very competitive high school where everybody was so laser focused on going to college. And I remember one of the things my teacher said, and she was an older lady at the time. She's retired now, but she said, "Yeah, when I was in high school, nobody really cared about going to college." And I was like, "Huh." So why is it that our generation has to go through this nonsense of this hyper competitiveness, whereas your generation just kind of went to school and then went home, right? And I remember hearing like an interview with like a North Korean defector, and one of the things that she said, like one of the biggest differences between North Korean and South Korean society is that in North Korea, you just go to school, come back at 3 p.m., and then you just go home, right? Whereas in South Korea, you go to school and then you're at like after school programs, and you're just in that for the entirety of your childhood. It's almost like a prison, and that's why they call like young kids starting from like 2010 started to call Korea Hell Joseon. And if you don't know what hell, or you know what hell is, but if you don't know what Joseon is, that's like the old name of Korea before it was Korea, right? And so I just thought how strange it is that a long time ago we were just allowed to live a normal life, and I don't even think it was that long ago, right? Probably like this burnout culture that we live in, I think started in like probably like the late 90s, I feel like. Or maybe not, because I remember watching this episode of Saved by the Bell with Jesse Spano. Like, do you remember Saved by the Bell? That was a very popular 90s show. And then one of the characters is freaking out and taking pills because she's studying because she wants to get into Stansbury, right? Which is like their equivalent of Stanford. And then they used to have a lot of these like um, lessons for in TV, and this is why I actually like watching TV. I feel like they had a lot of good lessons about don't use drugs and all that, or don't bring a gun to school to resolve violence. And I just remember like thinking like, wow, like that's insane. And then I realized like, becoming going to high school and becoming an adult that most of the population is insane, right? And they're okay not with the idea that they're just going to be a sacrifice for society and let society burn them out, right? And if you look at this well, this Google search right here, I just typed in what percentage of the population is burned out. And sometimes when I read this, I think it's like fake, right? And I know it's real because I've been there before. But it says, what percentage of people suffer from burnout? 89% of Americans have suffered from burnout within the past year, right? So most people are stressed, they're tired, and sometimes when you have just like a legitimate conversation with other people where we can just try to have a legitimate conversation, you could just kind of tell their mind's not fully there for whatever reason. And then, you kind of see here Forbes writes that burnout is a worldwide problem. 5 ways work must change. And it's just insane that we live in a society where we're treating everybody, including our friends and family members, like they're just disposable people, right? And that's something that I've always had in the back of my mind is like, why is it like this? And here's the thing, I think when I talk to most people in general, I think I have an effect on them because they seem to remember my name, even though I don't, because I talk to a lot of people, I don't remember telling other people my name, and my name's kind of a secret. You could call me like Squid Game Master. No, I'm just kidding. But, I think what happens is that people in general, um, I make a good impression on them because I'm very, I don't want to say effective, but I guess maybe I'm more memorable than most other people, and they remember my name, and I never remember telling them my name. But I think the reason why we get so burned out in our everyday interactions because a lot of it just feels like pointless and meaningless. And I think our brain knows that if we're just engaged in pointless and meaningless activities, that it's like the burnout is kind of telling you just stop, right? Like just stop what it is you're doing, and because there's like a societal pressure and conditioning to do the pointless and mindless things, we feel like we have to kind of overcome that with stimulants and drugs, right? And I've known a lot of people where like just to do their work, they take like ADD pills, and I'm like, that's insane. I'm going to sleep, right? And one other thing I wanted to highlight in this video is a book called The Burnout Society by Byung-Chul, and I've actually never read the book. This is probably going to be something that I'll read in my free time. But this is a Korean guy. Uh, I think he's a professor in Germany in philosophy. And he's just because South Korea is pretty much a burnout society nowadays. And I think it's like a worse version of Japan. And I don't know if you ever heard of the term like karoshi in Japan, where it means like you die because you burned out at work. Um, South Korea has their own version of that too. And you'll feel see, even though like South Koreans will say, "Oh, we're nothing like the Japanese," you'll see a lot of parallels in their societies, and it's insane, right? But again, this book was written by a South Korean uh, professor living in Germany, and I just think that from what I've read from the cover, it's pretty spot on. It's kind of sad that this is a worldwide problem because maybe I'm hoping like, hey, if I go to Europe, maybe things are more relaxed there. But it's probably not. I've even lived in Latin America, and I've been stressed out, like out of my mind, thinking, what is this? Like, you all told me that you're all relaxed people, and why am I so stressed out here? Right? So, this whole thing about burnout, in my experience, yes, it is a global phenomenon, and most people just cannot slow down and smell the roses and, build good and meaningful connections and do things like, learn how to cook your own food. And I think that's why so many of us are sick and unhealthy, right? We're relying on so many other people for convenience. And I remember once upon a time, I talked to this lady who had breast cancer, right? And one of the things that she told me was like, yeah, you know what? When I was in college, I would just microwave meals every single day, and I think that contributed to my cancer, right? That's what she told me, and I was like, wow, that's insane. But it's just like we're just rushing full force into that way of life where convenience and short-term thinking is all that matters, and we're not thinking about like the long run, right? What's happening in the long term. And that's kind of what I want you to think about, right? I want you to not burn yourself out. I want you to do me things that are meaningful to you. And I think if you do things that are meaningful to you and create meaningful relationships, you won't ever, it'll be like this foreign concept that you'll kind of be aware about, but it'll be like, huh, does that really exist? It's like people being paycheck to paycheck, right? So once upon a time, I did live pay I'm sorry. I did live paycheck to paycheck. And I thought like, wow, like this is too real. And then I type in Google like what percentage of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and I was like very shocked and angry. Like the Federal Reserve knows that most people um, would suffer if they had a $400 emergency, right? So why don't we do anything about this? And then, once I got to a point where I'm not paycheck to paycheck, it almost feels like a foreign concept. Like it's like I know about it, but it's not real anymore, right? And that's what I want you to feel about if you're burned out. That just slow down. And here's the beauty of what I'm going to talk about. You know how velocity banking is really popular in this channel. What's the beauty of velocity banking? It almost is like the antidote to the burnout phenomenon with regards to money, right? Because if you think about it, I always talk about what is the main culprit in for a six-figure earner. Why would they be paycheck to paycheck? It's because of segregation of income, and their income is split into 20 places, right? It's the same thing with a modern human being where they're doing like 20 things at once, and then they're wondering why they're burned out. And the like I said, the beauty of the velocity banking strategy is that you're just paying off debt one debt at a time, and you're just putting your paycheck into one place. So your life is more focused. And that's how human beings in general should be. They're just doing one thing at a time and their life is focused. But when you look at the average person, you ever notice that they're doing like 20 things at the same time and they suck at everything that they do? I notice that all the time. That's why when I have a normal conversation with random people, I know that they're not there in their head and they're just like spaced out or zoned out, or it feels like it, or maybe I'm just insane and I'm misinterpreting the situation. I don't know, but I'm just kind of from an overall, um, let's say, unbiased point of view, just diagnosing, and I'm not actually diagnosing because I'm not a doctor. I want to throw that out, but just kind of looking at society and evaluating it is just like we're all burned out because we refuse just to kind of understand our limits and do things one thing at a time, right? Which is what we need to do, and that's how like velocity banking works too. All right, so hopefully you're not burned out. What do you think about this topic? Is this topic relevant to you? If not, no worries. Leave a comment below. Also, if you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below, and we'll get on one-on-one Zoom call, see if you're a good fit for the group, learning about financial literacy and real estate investing. All right, have a great day, everybody. We will speak next time.